Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Join Terry with Tracer Rounds every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern to hear interviews with veteran artists, veteran business owners, and businesses that support veterans. Catch us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and MB Radio. If you miss a show, you can listen again on Reefs Across America Radio every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Tune in to see if you are on target. MBR, giving veterans a voice.
And welcome back to the Tracer Rounds podcast. And we're on a special night. We're on a Sunday. Usually we're a Tuesday. And we have a special guest with us tonight, Sergeant J. Packy Dempsey, and he is retired. And how did you get the name Packy, by the way? Welcome.
Welcome. Depends on which story you ask my dad, but the most consistent one was I would break in the refrigerator at night and pack the chocolate milk back to the room. And that's the most consistent story we got. So.
I love that. Well, welcome to the podcast tonight. And I know that you are also an Army National Guard veteran. You were a military policeman. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I was actually a deputy, and I wanted to join the military and get the GI Bill and then forward my career in, with a college degree. And I enlisted in 1997 at 30 years old.
Oh,
I was the oldest one in boot camp. They called me Pops.
I was one of the older ones too, but I wasn't the oldest one. The oldest one was 34, and they called her Grandma.
I bet. Yeah.
So how did you find basic training? Was it anything, you were already a deputy and then you're going into the Army National Guard. Did you find that any different? Did you find the training pretty much the same? How was that for you?
Everybody that was an MP in the Army went through Fort McClellan, and it was a fine school, great, best equipment. I got to know some really good instructors, drill sergeants. I still have contact with some of them. They really cared about the job, and they taught me invaluable lessons about leadership that was not taught in the civilian world. The drill sergeant was very personable. He was 26, I was 30.
Wow.
He allowed my wife or family come up and see after basic. He for about 9 weeks, he allowed my family to come up and see me on the weekends, and he allowed me off on whatever leave I needed to do. So it really helped a lot because I missed home.
Yeah. It is tough. It is nice that they did give you liberty every weekend because not many get that. That's a special condition, basically, to get time off on the weekend. So that's really awesome.
It was 17 weeks. So it was,
It's
you
long.
know, I wrote a lot of letters, and I'm not a good writer. So, but I wrote, like, I counted, I think it was 144 letters home
Oh, wow.
to her. I saved them in a box. One day I want to write a book about, being separated from your family and what the military goes through, the stress of just being away, not being able to be there with them every night.
Yeah, that really would be a good book to write because a lot don't understand that um, what you have to do to do mentally as a soldier to distance yourself from your family for that length of time, and then your family on the other hand waiting for you to come back, because when you come back, you think you pick up right where you left off, but you realize you don't, because the merry-go-round is still spinning and you're just jumping back on. They've already been through a lot of things while you were away, and you expect to come right back to the same place you left, and it's just not that way.
Mm,
So
yeah. The,
so you were a military police for 6 years?
well, it was total of 8, but yes,
8.
I was 6, and then you do 2 years layover or standby, and I was assigned to a really good unit. It had about 83% actual law enforcement officers in this unit.
Oh, wow.
217th in Prattville, Alabama, was assigned to the 1187 out of Fairhope. Is one of our sisters, and we deployed together and trained together and stuff like that. But I met a lot of cops, and I met some civilians that were really good leaders. And I love a good leader. I love to study and figure out how they do that. How they figure out, well, how they get themselves in that mindset. Will I be that leader someday?
We finding the right leader to follow is so hard sometimes. You in an organization, maybe the boss really isn't the leader. I mean, he's the one you have to listen to at the end of the day, but maybe he's really not the leader of the group. There's somebody else that everyone is really following and really trying to mirror, because they really have that quality about them. They really have that leadership that makes you want to do what they're doing, or at least kind of follow their example. So finding that right person is definitely important and definitely needed in any organization, be it military, police, or just a civilian, occupation. You've got to have somebody that really can lead and, put forth the mission and everyone's following. So I agree with you. So you were already a deputy, and then you joined the military, and then you got out, and then what did you do?
I stayed in the Guard, did what they did. We deployed mostly for disasters. I was very blessed to be the commander of security, so I got to know him as a person and a leader. So wherever he went or where we went, I went with him as his security. Then I was actually a narcotics investigator for the Dallas County Sheriff's Office in Selma, Alabama, and I returned to that position. Had great chief deputy, took good care of me, paid me the whole time I was gone. He was great about letting me off on the weekends to do drill. So, and then I went right back into being a narcotics. I was a K-9 officer, so I was assigned to the narcotics unit.
How long did you do that with narcotics and having a K-9?
I had, I think it was 6 K-9s over a 22-year period. There was just 3 years there that I wasn't assigned to the K-9 unit. It's kind of new. I had moved from Selma, Alabama to Orange Beach, Alabama. They needed a firearm instructor, and wanted to get my kids in a really good school system. So I moved down here and took the night shift patrol. Loved it. Then they assigned me to what they call a Marine unit, and I was really in heaven then. I was on a boat all day, and
Oh, wow.
they assigned me on a task force that solved marine cases, boat cases, boat trailer cases, reeling rods, and stuff like that. Very unique, interesting. It was full every day, because there's hundreds of boat captains and hundreds I don't know how many boats in this area, because it's the Gulf Coast. So
Yeah.
there was a lot to do.
Sounds very busy. So you were, let's talk, if you don't mind. I know not everyone knows your story and knows about what happened to you and knows about the book that's coming out. So can you walk us through the incident? Because it was was it when you were a narcotics officer, or was it at a different time that this happened?
Yeah, and it was in December the 7th, 1994. I was assigned to the narcotics division. All the deputies were tied up, and it was nothing unusual to send me to a call because they didn't need two guys because I had the dog with me. So they would send me to the call. We went to got called to a housing project area that was once an Air Force base, turned Section 8 government housing, and they recorded somewhere around 200 calls that year to that
Wow.
housing project. So it was just, going out there to Craig Field and, kids gambling, doing drugs or selling drugs or loud music, just skipping school, stuff like that. So
Right.
I get a call while everybody's at lunch, and I had laid my vest on my desk chair. It was really unseasonably warm that day. And I answered the call, and I arrived in a cul-de-sac. And when I first came through, 8 black males exited the area, like ran off. And so I made the block, called the dispatcher, said I'm gonna stick around a minute longer. And the callers were getting very upset with the gang activity that was there.
Mhm.
And I pulled back around. I had purchased a thing called a car camera on my own. I was the only one in the county. I activated the camcorder. This is it sitting over here.
Oh, wow.
I activated
You
the
still have
camcorder.
it.
I still have it, yeah. And it, I got out, and most of the guys walked off, but this one guy I didn't know. I knew pretty much the rest of them from prior encounters.
Yeah.
And he had a piece of cellophane between his finger and thumb, and it stuck out both sides. And being assigned to the narcotics unit, I identified it immediately as crack cocaine, which was real prevalent at the time. It was coming on strong, and we were fighting it street corner to street corner. So went to pat the guy down, and he stuck his hands in his pocket. So I thought he put the dope in his pocket, and went to check, and the drugs weren't there. Found a hole in the pocket, shook his pants leg. The crack fell out the bottom. Grabbed him on the arm, said, "You're under arrest, relax." And he attacked me. Went for my weapon. I was able to get away, and we ended up on the ground. I had just installed this newly piece of technology called a bailout system. It was a remote on my belt that would open the back door of the patrol car where the K9 was located. And she came out and took the guy off of me. And the other guys were coming in, and they changed their mind. They were scared of the dog.
Right.
So as the fight continues, I enter in front of the camera on the truck, and the events that unfolded were he's seen on the camera, unknown to me, taking my gun while I was handcuffing him and calling for help on the radio.
Wow.
He picked up the gun, and when I saw it out the corner of my eye, it looked like a Beretta because the barrel was sticking out. And I thought, I missed that in the pat down. And he pulled the trigger and said, "You're going to die." And I could hear the trigger hit the housing, but it didn't go off. So the dog engaged again. He was unclothed. My dog unclothed him. And when she engaged him again, he struck her and the ground, causing a stovepipe. When I realized in that 4 seconds that I had to use deadly force, I reached for my primary. It was there. And you can see me on the tape reaching twice. Then I'm looking to see, where's my gun?
Yeah.
And I had carried a backup gun for a couple of years. And I pulled the backup gun, I could see an image of my wife and child sitting on the front porch. It was a picture I'd taken when first day of kindergarten. I kept it on my speedometer, and I thought, I'm never going to see them again. And somebody else is going to walk her down the aisle. And
Oh my
I
goodness.
fired 5 rounds, center mass, and he literally turned and ran away. It looked unaffected. As the tunnel vision got away, I could see the other males behind him stunned. If I would have missed him, I would hit the guys behind him. But I hit, and a little foot chase. He fell over in the corner, turned with the gun, pulled the trigger, and the dog engaged. The gun did not go off. The dog engaged. I was able to take the weapon away from him and realize that was my weapon. I cleared the stovepipe, had a few choice words with the boys in the background. I don't remember what I said, but it kept them off of me, and went 00 on the radio.
Wow. So from the story or from the audio I was listening to of the incident, him hitting the dog is what caused the stovepipe and the weapon. And so luckily enough, I mean, I'm not glad that the dog got hurt or hit with the weapon, but luckily enough for you, that's what he did. And then it caused that. And then when he struck it the ground again, then it caused it to complete the jam or whatever. So it really would not fire. And so between him hitting the dog and the dog being there, the dog saved your life in more than one way that day. It was amazing.
It was
It was
actually
amazing story.
that particular move was tried to be duplicated by multiple agencies, and they never could get that gun to jam. And they just came to the determination that God was looking after me that day. It was just a miracle. It never happened again.
Wow. I would say he was definitely looking out for you. I would say he definitely has a mission for you, and he has more work for you to do, and that's why you're still here. And so now what do you do now that you've done this? Well, let's back up before we get there. But what happened after this incident at your agency? What happened to you? Did you go for any counseling or any help? Because that was a very traumatic experience. And even if it was 4 seconds long, that 4 seconds seemed to last forever, I'm sure.
Well, in actuality, the struggle lasted 1 minute. And at the time in 94, the statistics showed that if an officer went more than 40 seconds in a hand-to-hand combat situation, the officer would lose his life. I went 1 minute. I was able to keep my heart rate below 175. I lost my hearing for a little bit, tunnel vision. I could see the pulse in my eyes. And when I pulled the trigger, I thought I shot twice, because that's what we shot on the range. We'd shoot 2 rounds in holster. But I didn't find out till later that night by watching the video that I had fired 5 rounds. And when I approached him and he tried to shoot me again, I approached him with an empty gun.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness.
So the department was called. A state agency was probably about, the Alabama State Trooper office was about 300 yards from where I was at. Of course, they couldn't drive straight to me because it was a subdivision style cul-de-sac. First trooper arrived around a minute and a half. A friend of mine got out of the car, and I've been so glad to see the trooper friends, and other multi-agencies came out, and they took me to the hospital and took me to the courthouse, where I met with the state investigator and one of my lieutenants, and they read me my rights. And I thought, why are you reading me my rights? The guy tried to kill me. And I heard while I was at the scene, they said that I had shot him in the back 5 times. And I didn't know. I only shot twice. And they asked me in the interview, and I kind of thought they thought I was lying to them. They go, "No, you don't have any bullets in your gun." I said, "No, I shot twice."
Oh, wow.
And they were like, no. Okay. They said, "Well, we got 5 holes." actually 7, but we got 5 holes. And we just want to let you know that you didn't shoot him in the back. And I was like, I know that. Well,
Right.
that's not what all the gang members and witnesses are saying. I did get out of the interview pretty good. I went home. My wife came pick me up. I was able to see my daughter. She had been over to her grandparents while we were dealing with this, and she came home. It was wonderful. I still remember seeing her come through the door, and I still remember seeing the dog come through the door, and how I wasn't in tears, but I was an emotional wreck. And
Right.
somebody had to sleep on my couch for a few nights. They had to put a marked car in my front driveway because the newspaper turned on me. And the first headline the next morning stated that Officer of the Year shoots teen in the back 5 times.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that started almost 31 days of constant news cycle. The housing project would burn tires and shoot in the air, and when the cops came there, they'd shoot at the cops. And it was, my friends were out there fighting because of something that I felt I was at fault here. That if one of my friends got hurt because they were having to go out there and deal with that mess, is something that, it weighed on me.
Yeah.
The first grand jury met in 6 weeks, and they voted 9-9 to 9 not to indict and 9 to indict. And at the time, the state of Alabama had to have 12 to indict or 12 to not indict.
Oh, wow.
4 to 6 months later, I'm still at home on leave. The guys are busy. They're not calling me. A bunch of people came by, but eventually it starts getting quiet.
Yeah.
Because they're busy. They're trying to save me, but they couldn't talk to me. That always stuck out in my mind that a phone call was all I had.
Yeah.
So 4 months later, the forensics department really got their act together and put a state-of-the-art program together and showed that I was in danger. They could show, it was new technology at the time. They showed the finger on the trigger, and then they took a dummy in, had arrows in him, showing that the guy he was shot because I was shooting at the gun. He was, the way his arms were, and they finally it voted 6-12 to not indict me. Took me a few months later. They sent me to a counselor in Montgomery, which is about 50 miles away, maybe an hour each counseling session. And at the time, there was a stigma. If you told them you had problems, you was out of a job. They would never, I enjoyed my job. So I may have not been truthful in my answers, but they eventually put me back to work, and I took a better job down here at the beach, and spent the rest of my time here.
So did they watch the video at all? Because, you were the only one that had one of those. And so that video that you that you recorded of the incident, and I challenge anybody to go watch it, because it's very telling about exactly what happened and how it happened. And, there's no way anything different than what you say could have happened. I mean, it's very obvious that he was attacking you and that the dog was trying to protect you. And so how did that video play into it, or did it?
Well, they at the end of the day, they voted because of the color of my skin, and the rallies and the activists all came to town. Al Sharpton, Senator Hank Sanders, all the city council members, and they all came out there against and said I shot the kid because of the color of his skin. And it took a long time for the community to settle down and realize he did the kid did wrong. They only released
Yeah.
still photos. At the time, 8mm was brand new, and VHS was popular, but I had bought an 8mm camera, and they just really didn't have a way to release it to the press, and they never did, and it eventually leaked out from one investigation to another, and I didn't talk about it for a long time. I made a couple training videos. I wanted to help cops, but 2021, I got a phone call from a captain with Alabama State Troopers that was on the scene that day, and he said, "Hey, I need you to come up here and tell your story." And I was like, "No, Cap, I got my butt kicked. I'm not doing this."
Yeah.
And it was a very low time. Developed PTSD that wasn't really recognized. Multiple addictions, and it took a long time. Once it all came to a head, I was able to, by the grace and mercy of God, I was able to keep my family, go on to another job, be with my grandkids, and drinking and pornography and inappropriate relationships. It was all I was all trying to just anything to get that thought off my mind that I took that kid from his family. When we would go to my family gatherings, I felt horrible. I was like, I knew this kid's dad. He, I felt for his pain of a lot. I couldn't even imagine losing one of my kids or my wife, to gunfire. And it took a long time to realize I did the right thing. And I want to share this message of not only did I survive PTSD, but I won. And we're not out here to survive. We're out here to win. And I can show them my mistakes. I'm very open with them about the mistakes. I can show them mistakes. And hopefully the younger generation will say, I don't want to make those mistakes. I'm going to listen to this old guy.
You're so right, though. Back in the day in the military and other law enforcement type agencies, if you said you had any kind of problem, that could have been a career ender very quickly, because they didn't want to hear that. If you said something in the military like, I'm having trouble, I'm struggling, I'm dealing with this thing, they're like, okay, well, you just need to get out. So I'm so glad now that the tide has turned for the most part, and people are able to actually say, I need some help with this, and get it, and then not be condemned or put in a category or any of that where they're not effective in their jobs anymore. So I'm very glad that you've turned that corner, and then other people are able now to turn that corner as well.
That's right. And I definitely didn't do it by myself. I had a Christian counselor. He walked me through. He challenged me all the time to complete a project each week. I feel God put us and built us the way He built us is to complete missions daily, or to go out there every day, and put some roadblocks up where I couldn't buy alcohol. I put other roadblocks up where I couldn't look at websites. My family has all access to all my internet usage, and now it's so nice to, when my granddaughter picks the phone up, I think, I'm nothing to worry about. There will be nothing on that phone for my wife or my granddaughter to see. And I feel better, but every day I put pennies in the jar. I rise early. I do my prayer time. I listen to a Bible study. I contact 5 guys that have the same struggle I do, and we can tell each other by the text in the mornings at 6 o'clock. If one hadn't texted, the other one texts, what's going on? There's something going on in your life. I can just tell. And one of them's a pastor, and they don't mind telling me like it is, and I can take it from them. Yeah. Which I better if I want to, because every day I have to improve every day.
Yeah, it's accountability. And, sometimes we need that to keep us going in the right direction. Sometimes left to our own devices, we can stray quite quickly if given the opportunity. But having someone to be accountable to does keep us going in the right direction because, you have to tell them what's going on and you don't want to have to tell them that you've kind of strayed a little bit. And so you want to keep going down the path that you were intending to go on and not on an alternate path for sure. So what are you doing now? You had this event happen and it was very traumatic, obviously, and you went on to other law enforcement jobs. But what do you do now with that information and with your recovery and how you've started really kind of showcasing to others how you can be resilient and recover from something as traumatic as that?
My passion is first responders. I contact a lot of them on a regular basis. I put Facebook posts out. About 15 years ago, we started a book, and I had the wrong intentions, and it never worked out. My intentions were to make money and be a training video. And once we started showing miracles of God and how He affected my life, and I was open about it, it started coming back online. And we're like days away from releasing to whoever we decide to go with on the printer, and it'll hit out. And we did an audio with a special guest that nobody knows who it is until it's the last. At the last sentence, they're going to let you know who she is. So the book has been a journey that I think everybody should go through, because it ain't just like putting some stuff down on piece of paper. You got to try to relive it. And then when you listen to the book, you got to relive it again and know that you're not that person anymore that hurts people.
Well, I mean, I don't think are you talking about you hurt people in the context of how you were
PTSD.
dealing
Yeah.
with? Yeah,
Right,
okay, that
right.
makes sense. Yeah, because that does hurt you and it hurts your family because they have to watch you go through it and they have to try to figure out how to help you best because sometimes by helping we're enabling, so they have to like find another way not to enable but to really assist you in coming to a place where you're good with everything in your life and that you can move forward and not look backwards at some of those traumatic times. So you would say if someone was in your situation, they've faced some kind of traumatic experience, what would be the first thing you'd tell them to do after they've had this incident happen?
Find somebody you trust, and I want to be somebody they trust, somebody that's been there in a worse situation, and I'm able to walk them through. I want them to recognize that they cannot do it by themselves. It takes a whole team to straighten me out. I'm hard-headed. I'm strong-willed. I didn't change overnight, but I ain't going back.
How old were you when this happened? You looked really, really young. That's why I asked.
I had hair and everything. I was in really good shape. I was, I think, 26.
26. You were young.
Been married a month.
Oh, wow.
Well, been married about 4 months when it happened, and she's been strong and has carried me. She's my rock. She now has stage 4 cancer, so
Oh
I
my
get
goodness,
to
I'm sorry.
reverse the roles and take care of her for a change. And right now, God's been good with the medication, and she's still with us 2.5 years later.
Wow, that's
And
awesome.
as everybody asks me every day, how's it going? I say every day's like Christmas. You have no idea when you don't have tomorrow. You can't guarantee that I have all this tomorrow. So I'm gonna live for today.
Right. Well, that's good news that the medication is working for your wife. I know that's really a hard thing to go through, both for her and for you and your family. So we're wishing you all the best there and wishing her all the best for sure.
And when these guys, when they go see the therapist, I don't tell them they're a weak person because they take medication, and that medication will wear off, and it doesn't make you weak to go back to the doctor and say, I think the medication's not working anymore. We got to stop that stigma of pride, and these agencies are going to have to step up and recognize that a citizen will see anywhere from 2 to 4 critical incidents in their life, but first responders will see anywhere from 300 to 600 depending on their agency. And sometimes some of the trauma is from call to call.
Yeah.
There's no distance, there's no time, there's no debriefing, and they got to step up and start being proactive about telling them ahead of time, this is what you're going to experience after a critical incident, and this is what we're going to do to help you.
Yeah, there really needs to be peer-to-peer support, a network where you can really talk it through and really, after something traumatic, kind of wrap your head around what happened and what's going on and how you deal with it after that. So what does the book that's coming out, and it is The Fastest 4 Seconds, is that the title?
That's the title. Fastest number 4 seconds. It's on my website and on my social media sites. People have contacted me and said, hey, I went through this, and I'll just listen to their story.
Yeah.
And they get to hear my story, and it helps me. I often say the problem with law enforcement, for instance, is it's pure boredom interrupted by moments of terror.
True. Very true.
Same thing with the military. They'll just be laid back on tour, and then all of a sudden it hits. And part of my training is I explain to them the rudder of the ship can be off 1 degree, and at 100 miles, they're miles off their location. You have to adjust that rudder on a daily basis. Some of these guys are so busy, they're going to have to adjust the rudder between calls. They've got so much going on with the disrespect and having to deal with what they're dealing with in America.
Well, I talked to someone else the other day, and I hadn't really thought of it in these terms, but what he was saying was, as a police officer, law enforcement specifically, even if just a first responder has to deal with it too, but police officers in general, they're not ever off. Like, they're always on high alert. Like, you can't sustain that high level of high alert for too long and not have something, really impact you, because being at a state of a heightened awareness for that period of time, it takes a toll on you, because even when you're off duty and you're not wearing a uniform, you're still looking around wondering where the next incident may come from. You're watching the door, you're watching people, you're watching for things happening. And so you're always on a state of alert, regardless of whether you're actually on the job or you're off the job. Your mind isn't shutting off, and it isn't telling it, okay, you can relax now because we're off work and there's nothing to be concerned with. But it's always a high state of alertness, and that really takes a toll on you.
And a lot of times the high state of alertness is not necessarily in the street. It could be in your administration. Your rank and file could be harder part of your day than any bad guy, because you can't just go up and tase your lieutenant.
No, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Definitely shouldn't do that. And you're right too. You say you go from one call to the next, and the calls can be completely different. It could be, somebody in distress and you're just helping them. It could be a bank robbery. It could be, somebody being assaulted. It goes from one extreme to the other. You never know what you're going to get on an hourly or a minute by minute basis on calls, because it can be so completely different.
And these first responders, the average police shooting occurs around 4 seconds, but there's a lot more to it than the 4 seconds. There's a lot of prep, and you need to be prepared. You need to draw your gun every day. Your medics need to check their kit constantly, the doctor in the ER needs to stay sharp and make sure his team is ready. And there's just so much preparation. So when the critical incident comes, it's not a surprise to you, and your brain, the smartest thing on this planet, can process that in 4 seconds. And you don't give the bad guy the satisfaction.
Right. You were so prepared and you didn't even know you were that prepared because you had the camera, you had the dog, you had the release on the tailgate of your vehicle, you had a backup weapon. Like you were more prepared. I mean, I know that you had prepared for any thing to happen, but you didn't know you were so well prepared that day. Going into that incident, you thought it was just going to be chasing off some kids and telling them to go home and all that, and then it turned completely like eventful real fast. Like it went from 0 to 100 in just seconds, and you wouldn't have had any time to put yourself together in that way had you not prepared ahead of time. By having all those things in place, the camera, the dog, the automatic release, the backup gun. You were well prepared for that incident. I think God took care of you, and you just really didn't even know.
He did. And if anybody, I carry a little thing on my wrist that shares my business information. It has a few short clips of my shooting on there, and I often introduce myself to these other cops, or other first responders that I see. Hey, you want to see a miracle? And they're always want to say, sure. I say,
Yeah.
tap your phone here, and I'll tell you how my training saved me, but the lack of almost cost me my life. And I adjusted the rudder of the ship, and I got in better shape, better mental, physical. I got better at shooting. I got my dog trained in a different way. So I changed with the times. I'm just blessed that I was able to correct the ship on that instead of becoming a statistic that day.
Well, I heard you say in another interview too that the dog was so in heightened state of, like motion that she actually bit you a couple of times just trying to take care of you, but actually got you, and you had to ask her to release you so that she could then focus on the guy that was trying to get the gun and in the midst of the struggle and all.
Yeah, I'm trying to get stuff out on the radio. I'm trying to get this guy handcuffed. I'm fighting this guy. I'm worried about the other guys coming in. She's bit me. I get the most hate mail from canine officers. They're like, the dog didn't do this right. And the dog did exactly what she trained. And that was the training of the time. And they're like, you should have had this dog. You should have had that. Well, I didn't. I got this dog from 6 weeks old, and I went through all this training. And when it came up to that time, she did her job. And most importantly, she was willing to trade her life for mine and not give it a second thought.
And she was able to then a little bit later on down the road retire. And did you keep her?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've always been able to keep my dogs at home. I've always buried my own dogs. I took them from the day I got them to their death. I've always been right there with them.
Did you train that dog, or was that dog trained by someone else?
No, I picked her up at 6 weeks old. It's in my book. Tell you the story and the journey of failure after failure after failure to be able to get to where I was at that day. I didn't do everything right. And anybody that says there are that they think they can do everything right, they don't realize they're down on the ground with guns going, and you're wrestling, and you can't train yourself to be able to overcome a dog bite. There's just no realistic training of the dog biting you,
right?
But the dog will do exactly as it's trained, and if it's seen it before, some of it comes natural, but 90% of it comes from really good handlers. And my heart goes out to these canine guys. They're my heart. They're always complained on. They're always in the news. They're always getting sued. But you know what? At the end of the day, they're put in crappy situations because of who they are. and what they bring to the scene. I mean, SWAT calls the canine, so you know it's bad. So, these guys are my passion to be prepared more than the average first responder.
I agree with you. So did you have training to train the dog, or did you just figure it out? Had you trained a dog before this one?
I just started some training classes. Sheriff was very interested in. He had bloodhounds, and he was very interested in this thing called a narcotics dog. He said, "We need a narcotics dog," and he just started sending me to schools and out of town. And these handlers took me in, treated me like I was their son, and I went to seminar and I learned from other guys, watching I ain't doing what he's doing, but I'm going to do this. And I learned from their mistakes and their winning, and I put it all together, and it ended up with a career of being a canine officer.
That's awesome. So, you go around to different speaking engagements, and you said that you go around to Christian men's groups and you go around to different law enforcement agencies. How did you start on that path? I know you said that you had someone, one of your captains, call you and say, "You need to come talk to us." Is that how your speaking series started, or what really prompted you to start going around and giving your story and really speaking to people?
At the end of the day, it's word of mouth. And when these instructors get together with other instructors from other agencies and other academies, they all brag about what instructors they have, and mine's pretty big bragger. He's like, "I got one you wouldn't believe," and so word of mouth, and it's nothing but a God thing. It ain't that I'm some kind of excellent speaker and I got that grade of presentation. It's just word of mouth of touching somebody in that class. I can't get them all, but
Right.
I want somebody to think, you got a serious job. You don't have a cubicle job. You're called to the crappy situations. You need to mentally and physically be prepared for that.
True. And giving your scenario where you had these things in place, I mean, it helps them maybe think about things that they can put in place as well to be prepared just in case an incident came about, something as what you had faced, and be able to come out on the other side of it, with their life basically.
Right.
So the book is coming out soon, probably in the next couple of weeks, would you say?
Yeah, I would say that in the next month. Yeah, it should be out.
And so it's going to be available at the address I have on the screen there, the fastest4seconds.com, or you can probably find a link on your Facebook page, the fastest 4 seconds as well.
Right. Google has me on there. But that's, I'm small time. I'm handling it myself. I'm producing the book myself. I'm self-publishing versus having someone do everything. There's a particular way. First responders are very curious people, and my book is put together with truth, and I'm able to back that statement up with some sort of document. So I feel like I'll have the trust of the first responders and military that more speaking engagement. It'll be up to God what he wants to do. I'm just here to be his vessel.
I think you're doing an outstanding job of being that vessel and really putting your story out there and really helping people. What advice would you give somebody in your line of work or your former line of work, um, just to prepare themselves for the mission of being a law enforcement officer or in the military, and then somebody when they're needing to deal with something traumatic? What would you say best would prepare them for that?
I open my class up with the saying, "You will not rise to the occasion, but you will fall to the level of your training." There's a difference in what happens in training in the real world. These agencies try their best, but if you really want to close that gap, it's going to be up to the individual to be hungry for the knowledge, be willing to spiritually, mentally, and physically prepare themselves for what they might have to do. and that's what the public expects.
Yeah, that's true. Um,
Never
you know, I did,
underestimate your opposition, and
especially when you
always
don't even know who that's going to be.
that's right. And from minute to minute, from second to second, and being prepared's tough, and it's tough on a family.
Yeah.
Police officers have, or first responders in general, in military, have the highest divorce rate there is, because some people don't sign up for what they end up turning themselves into.
True, and the highest rate of suicide too is what I understand between.
At the time of in 1994, statistics showed somewhere around 70 officers were killed in the line of duty, and somewhere in the upwards of 200 killed by their own service weapon. They took their
That's
life
awful.
by their own, and it's not been talked about, but we've got these guys, Dave Grossmans, we got Michael Surgis, we got Dr. Check. We're starting to get it out there that it's just a big splash in the pond when you kill yourself. It's like throwing a rock in the pond. It's a big disruption, and then the pond settles all out, and you get to miss out on a lot. And there's help out there, medically, psychologically, physically, and let's get it out there to these first responders and military. And if listening to my mistakes in that class helps them from making a mistake, I've completed my mission.
Absolutely. You know, I heard from Michael too when I spoke with him that he said the statistic is that if a police officer or military, something like that, kills themselves, then there is a potential for their children to do the same, which is
Right.
so sad. I hadn't ever heard that correlation or connection that you know, those children of the fallen officers by their own hand begets some of that for their own family and starts them down that path. And I was like, I just can't hardly imagine, um, you know, that connection. I hadn't thought about it that way. And so, you know, really that should give you a pause when you're thinking about doing something along those lines, to think about your family. Not only will they miss you, but what's going to be the aftermath of that decision, you know, because it can set them on a bad path and down a wrong road. It's very sad. I hadn't thought about it like that, and now it would really make me think, if I were in those shoes, you know, what about my kids? You know, that's really what your thought should be in the first place, is what about my family? What's going to happen to them? What are they going to be doing, you know, if I'm not here?
That's right.
So just like when police officers have those traumatic events and you're not sure if you're coming home, your thought in your mind is, what about my family? That was yours. You saw them sitting on the porch. You're like, I don't know if I'm going to see them again. And so that goes through your head really quickly.
And by the way, I walked her down the aisle.
Oh, that's awesome. That's such good news.
Now I'm walking hand in hand with a grandchild, and man, things are different now. My empathy is way up there. My kindness I'm kinder. I can't imagine not being able to experience that with them.
Yeah. God had a purpose and still has a purpose for you. So you're here to help other first responders kind of prepare and get themselves ready. And then you're also here to just talk about how, you know, mental health can be, it's not a negative thing. We all have to deal with different traumatic events in our lives, and the way we deal with it and how we approach it matters so much. We can't just like keep tamping it down and forgetting it happened and just trying to move on. You really have to deal with it. And until you do, you're going to be struggling. I have a feeling from just hearing everyone's stories that, you know, the more they just tried to forget it and move on, and just like the gallows humor that people use when traumatic events happen, and you just like, you know, kind of make light of it in some fashion just to kind of move past it. Because some things are so traumatic. If you don't do that, that mental image or those situations really take over. And so people just try to, you know, tamp it down again and move on. And then so much of that just, you can't at some point. It just spills over. Well, if there's anything that I haven't asked you or anything that you want to put out to the group, now's a good chance to. We've got about 5 minutes left in the show. And so I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about any engagements you have coming up or any other thing you want to talk about before we get off the air today.
No, I just want to reiterate, you will not rise to the occasion, but you will fall to the level of your training. You have to expect the unexpected and never underestimate your opposition.
Very good advice. Very good advice, because the more prepared you are, more chances of you coming back from that situation. So you want to always prepare and always get yourself in a good position, both mentally and physically, to deal with what comes your way.
Because unfortunately, 100% is true, and it statistically shows that in a career, someone's going to try to kill you. It doesn't say if, it just says when in your career someone's going to try to kill you. We don't need to give them the satisfaction. We need to rise to the occasion, and it's up to the individual officer or how serious he takes it, or the first responder or the fireman. How serious do they take their job? Because they're the few, the chosen, they're the peacemakers.
Very true. So that's good advice for everyone that's listening tonight. If you are in a situation where you're facing life and death decisions, the more prepared you are, the better outcomes for everybody, for the person that you're dealing with and for your family and for yourself. So thank you so much, Packy, for coming on the show tonight and for sharing your story and for giving us the advance notice that you have a book coming out that we can take advantage of and really kind of read and hear how you've pushed through this traumatic event and come out on the other side and are sharing stories to make sure that others are able to do the same.
Your family does not want a flag. They do not want a casket. They want you.
Absolutely.
Be mentally and physically prepared to do it, whatever it may be.
On that note, this is Tracer Rounds signing off. Thank you so much, Packy, for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you.
Life is like a duck. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Here at Military Broadcast Radio, we're teaming up with our friends at Die Tired, the veteran-friendly music band spreading strength, resilience, and mental health awareness one shirt at a time.
And check this out. Their brand new shirts feature broadcast beaker right on the breast pocket. A reminder that you can weather the storm, and you're never alone.
Shirts are only $25, and proceeds support giving veterans a voice. MBR's mission to teach veterans how to podcast and videocast. Because when our vets are talking, they're not overthinking. They're not second-guessing. Together, we stop the 22 stigma. Grab your shirt today at mbradio.us and hit the shop. Or go directly to toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband. That's toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband.
Suit up, stand strong.
Remember, we're unduckable together.
You're built tougher than the storm. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.